Hey, it's Chris. Let's do this. Roundup this week. What do we got going on? A little bit of everything, as always, and a little bit of Mea Culpa because, Awkward Guest 2 kind of explained how to play that wrong last week, so right there, fall on my sword. You know what? I screw up sometimes. Too many rulebooks, too much overhead, and you know what? Not enough paying attention sometimes for me. So, no excuses, just apologies. There you go. What else we got going on? Well, we'll get there. You ready? Crowdfunding Roundup. As always, as usual, let's go. And you know what? At the beginning here, a Mea Culpa as well about the DC United, right? Like the day after I do my news video saying DC United coming soon, they're like, it's coming in the middle of the summer. Okay, anyway, Tiny Epic Game of Thrones, Gamelink Games, $315,000. You get to play it solo, as well as multiplayer, as well as cooperative, as well as competitive. 4 different modes that they're offering to you in a smaller package than I was initially thinking. Because again, I was wondering with this little miniature-based version, what it was going to be. Now, the tricky point here is that you see that the gameplay all in is $50, which means that if you're explicitly putting gameplay all in there, it makes me wonder if you're going to have additional stuff later in the campaign. Deluxified, playmats, coins, tokens, upgrades, other aspects. I don't know, but again, $50 not unreasonable with all 4 of those modes. With the problem with all 4 of those modes, right? The expansion adds, I believe, the cooperative, the Ice and Fire expansion. It adds a little bit of extra content as well. But this gameplay all in also gets you the extra Heroes pack. And the Heroes pack is really where you're getting a lot of it. The 5th player expansion, I mean, okay. The thing I wonder about, though, just like with a lot of other multi-game campaigns, it's the same sort of philosophy, right? Are you going to want to play this solo and cooperative and competitive? Are all 3 modes actually going to be as good as each other? Or is one mode just going to be standalone, head and shoulders above the rest? The cooperative version, you're playing up against the walkers coming over the wall. Otherwise, in the base game alone, you're taking on, well, castles. You're trying to get 3 castles to claim the Iron Throne, and you're scoring after rounds 3, 5, and 6 in order to determine who has the most points after all of those, achieving alliances through one of, I think, like 5, maybe 6, I can't remember off the top of my head, different actions that you're going to be taking on a turn-by-turn basis. And again, to be frank, I don't think the miniatures look that good. The miniatures are going to be tiny because it's Tiny Epic, and so the details aren't going to be good. Just give me all these meeples. Just make it all meeples and color them different colors based on the factions and the houses that they are. And I think aesthetically that would even look better. But essentially what you're doing is you've got 2 dice on your turn on your action. And they're going to be rolled. One of which you're rolling, I believe. And then the other of which is going to be handed to you from the person who went before you, which is already going to have been rolled and have an action up on the die in the first place. So yeah, I think 6 actions if we're, 6-sided die. Until I can find a way to get me a good 5-sided die. Anyway, I digress. And so you're going to be placing it on these markers on this right side of this sideboard here and covering up one of these actions to take, but then you're taking the action that is on the die as a whole. And so you're slowly winnowing what's available there, but also utilizing the action that's on your die, if I'm doing that correctly. You're getting shield tokens. Those are what you're exchanging to other groups. And if you have at least 2 of somebody's shield token, you're considered an alliance. And then their tokens count for your power when you're trying to figure out battles and power. And the action dice, as you can see there, the Hand of the Throne, your individual power tokens. Again, I mean, those look cool. I like the color aesthetic there. And the castles that you're going to be putting down, trying to control in the first place. You're getting more heroes. You're getting more rival cards. And I believe you're getting more plot cards in the Hero Pack expansion. You're getting 2 extra heroes as well. You're getting, with the deluxe, you're getting an extra Lannister. And the Hero Pack actually gives you, we'll skip here for a second. The cooperative gets you 2 extra playable houses. And then the extra hero pack gives you just a little bit more of each of the houses, 2 additional characters or additional asymmetric options. So that's the game in a nutshell. It shows you this action selection here, locks in the 2 actions you're performing, 1 of the die roll, and then 1 on the action mat. So as you're putting them down on the mat, like I mentioned, it's going to have less options the later you go into the round, but you're going to have plot cards, you're going to have gold recruitment, you're going to have castles that you're slowly conquering in a battle style. But as a area control person, are you going to want this? As a non-area control person, are you going to like it? I don't know. I guess I'm not typically what I would consider an area control person. And, I am both worried, trepidatious, and slightly excited by this quote when you compare it to basically 2 of the best. Sorry. The 2 best solo games ever made. That is either hyperbole or the biggest praise that you can possibly imagine. So that is some words, but apart from that, I have no clue. I have no clue if I would like this or not. And lately I just can't do things that I'm questioning. I have a hard time hitting on the stuff that I think I'm going to like, let alone that. So a couple videos preview wise on here, and a rule book that you can check out as well. So it's all there, it's all there, it's all there. And, you know, you're going to get it maybe even before the end of the year, which is probably the best part of this campaign, October 2024. And they tend to be pretty on track, I believe, with Gamelink Games. So, I mean, again, if you're not an area control person, does this change your mind? Even from a cooperative area control? Because I kind of like the idea of that. But we'll talk about a little bit of cooperation in these games here. That's got me intrigued in a minute. So then we're going to talk about the modular table by Wyrmwood. $400,000. These high-end board game tables never cease to amaze me how much money that can just be thrown around, sort of like some of the RPG campaigns, right? I guess, you know, it's the RPG people probably looking over the tabletop scene going, oh my gosh, well, they're throwing around so much money on the tabletop side of things. What are those guys made of? I don't know. I just would never buy a table sight unseen, right? Without having a physical in front of me. Something about that, right? It's like when I read a journal article, I want the paper copy in front of me. Reading it on the computer screen versus having it in front of me, there's just something different. And the same thing with furniture. Like, right? You ever tested a couch? You ever looked at a couch and said, wow, that looks really good. And then you just went over and sat on it and you were like, whoa, this is not a good couch. And that's kind of how I feel like tables would be for me. So I would never spend this, you know, pedigree aside, whatever, right? It's going to be $1,000. Not that $1,000 for a lot of you is probably going to be enough to stop you. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't even have room for, you know, barely this 3 foot by 3 foot table in this room. We have a kitchen table. That's what I call my board game table. I got 3 kids. I don't have extra space anywhere to put it in the basement, right? Let's play soccer in the basement. Yeah. I'm going to play soccer around anyway. So that's what it is. I mean, it's got $400,000. It's probably going to double that by the time it ends, and it never ceases to not fund. So check it out if you're interested, and thought I'd highlight it regardless. So Aqua Rove, Button Shy, $44,000 as a solo game with some back catalog available as well, getting your free expansions like they always do. Rove is sort of a... You ever seen those puzzles where you kind of move them around and try and get them in the right organization? That's basically what Aqua Rove is here in a semi-scenario based situation, because every single of the 7 scenarios that you're going to be doing starts out like this. These 6 modules are next to each other. You have to basically arrange them into this pattern by using the movement cards that are going to be available to you. Now, the tricky part is, and they say that the difference of this versus a previous edition of this is that the movement cards are actually going to have the directions of which you can move and the how many spaces, as opposed to the others that did not have this in the original way of playing it. And so it's going to be a little bit tighter strategically from that aspect. And then you're going to have, I believe, 7 of these mission cards that you're going to have to try and get through as many of them, or all of them potentially, as possible before you run out of the actual movement cards that are designated here. That's it. Oh, don't want that? Want the kid-friendly version? Well, you can do it in a 4x4. That's what you're getting there. You're getting a little expansion content as a whole. Button Shy killing it again with one of their campaigns, plenty of videos, endorsements, and everything else in between, and whatever this dive mode is as well. So, amphibious expansion. Basically, once you've completed the normal game, flip it over to get additional mission. And so if you get the missions, you get the title of Ultimate Amphibious Explorer. Original Rove expansion collection down here at the bottom. And that's it. So that's all you need to know from the Button Shy. They're killing it. There you go. Bloomchasers. Reminds me of the 3D abstract game of the tree building things I talked about on my channel a year or 2 ago. Only this takes more of a 3D element, makes it more aesthetically pleasing, and makes it a little less abstract-y. I mean, it's still an abstract game by heart, but it's not as pure information, just because of the randomness that you can get with some of these card draws that you see at the bottom of this picture. It's got $30,000, and you're going to recognize the company with a couple of their more recent ones, Abduction and Tiny Laser Heist, the dexterity-based sort of grab it out of a little safe room game sort of situation. And what you're doing essentially in this very sped up GIF, I'm not actually speeding up the video, but they're speeding up theirs, is you're placing these blooms on top of your tree branches. And these tree branches are going to be branches with the little green pieces that you're seeing. And then you place your little colors on top of them. And then you place whatever action you want of the 3 that are available from the seasons to mitigate or to navigate how you're going to do. And then blooms will occur. And you need to be able to place in one of the 3 configurations of blooms using at least 2 of your 3 flowers to complete the different ways that they are going to be lining up. That's the game. Go until the end. 30 minutes, everything you need to know right there. A couple different modes if you really want to do that as a co-op, a solo, or a 2 versus 2. Here are the element cards that I mentioned. You place it, you bloom it, you go. That's it. And it gives you a few examples right here of how you're going to be placing these and which ones you can use in what. So it's actually a lot cheaper than I expected. And you get this little extra expansion content. But I don't know. This is another one of those where I go from an abstract style of things. Will it actually appeal to me? Will it be as good as the aesthetic is? And so price point's fine. $30 for base, $45 for the expansion. I mean, it's a little bit more than I would have expected for the expansion, considering how much it's adding, and you're paying 50% of the base price. And January 2025 is what it is. And I guess, you know what? They are adding a little bit more than I thought. 12 new branches, 4 different types, more flowers, more buds. Okay, so that's not actually as bad. That's probably a little bit better price point-wise. So, again, abstract, niche, very aesthetically pleasing. Is that what you want? You want table presence? It's got it in spades. Check it out. So, power vacuum. I actually, the day before filming this, got a preview prototype of this. And I didn't realize it was actually going on crowdfunding. They just said, hey, we got one available. We're going to send it to you. And I was like, oh, awesome. And I thought it was like launching at the end of the month. So I'm clearly doing well and paying attention, as I said at the beginning of the video, right? Falling on my sword and saying all my sorries because I get everything wrong every time. But this is a trick-taking game. And the main twist of this trick-taking game is you have this center platform in the middle that you're going to be plugging, and unplugging power into based on what you want your secret agenda to accomplish. And it's the basics of a trick-taking game, right? Highest one wins the trick. If you lose the trick, or, well, really, if you have the lowest number in the trick, because you don't always lose the trick if you have the lowest number, but if you have the lowest number, then you get to manipulate the center, because in the center of this board, you can see that there are 2 yellow plugs, and you get to move one of the electrical pieces from one to the other, just at your whimsy. And so the secret agenda comes in that at the end of the round, you have an agenda that says, I want to have the most power on one of these. And so if you get that right, extra bonus points. And for every 10 points you earn a piece of your little victory trophy. And if you get all 4 pieces of your trophy, 40 points, you win. And that's the game in a nutshell. It says it usually plays about 3 to 4 rounds. And the only twist on the trick-taking part otherwise is that you have these 4 suits, and you can see what the 4 suits are on one side as well as the other. So white is on white on one side and white on the other side. Yellow, red, green. However, there are also spy cards, and spy cards show up as the regular color on the backside, but are black cards in your hand facing you. So people don't know, but can maybe deduce it if you don't play a card with a green backing and someone leads green, because you still have to follow suit, but that obviously wouldn't be considered suit then. Red is the considered trump all, because of the 4 suits, I believe it's violence or something along those lines, right? Violence triumphs over all, but spies, the black cards, trump only the red cards. So if there's no red cards, the spy cards are worthless and they're last. If there's any red cards trying to trump out, then the black cards win. So that's the game in a nutshell, and it seems kind of clever. The only thing I didn't really see was player count variability. I think it changes a little bit, but I think I saw it more in the other games as well that we're talking about this week with some of the rules changes. So again, check it out if you want. And it looks like a little bit of something different with a slight accessibility, although I think it could be a little bit longer as well than the other one that I just talked about as well with Cat Blues and Bebop and Bitewing's trio. So otherwise though, I'll let you know, because I'll have a video out before the end of the campaign in addition. So that's Power Vacuum, Treacherous, Treasonous, Trick-taking game. Then the Eternaut, $77,000. Very respectable funding goal as well from Pendragon Studios. 1 to 4 player. This is the other cooperative game that I was alluding to. And what you're doing is you're basically taking your actions through this storybook, choose your own adventure style manner, where these interactions that you're going to be having on this scenario-based map are going to be having numbers, and then you go and see what the number does, whether that's an item, an NPC, an event, however it may be, and you're taking these actions one by one until you get to the end of the story track, which is basically your time limit. So you're trying to slowly reveal everything you need to, and I believe they say 9 scenarios, 9 or 7. The videos or games are blurring together at this point. But use of 100 map cards and the secret boxes as you're going along. So that's kind of what it's doing. I can't really give you necessarily a more explicit explanation, because the actions that you're taking are relatively straightforward of moving, interacting, just taking actions as you're going along, talking to NPCs, exploring. So yeah, miniature based. So the price point is a little bit higher for a sort of choose your own, and it's cooperative though. So that'd be the other thing, is how do you feel about that? And the number of action cards, for example, depends on the number of players. So if you're like one player, you play with like 8 cards in your hand. You know, 2 is like 6 and 3 is 4 and 4 is 3 or something along those lines. So you can see the dynamics of how you're going to be interacting and needing to take those actions change as you go. The Three Brothers expansion, the stretch goal box here for a total of 100 euros. So if you want miniatures, extra miniatures to go along with it, you can pay a little bit more. And the all-in with some gameplay deluxifications for even a little bit more as a whole. So gives you a little pledge content here, and the stretch goals that we're going to be getting, just a little bit of extra action cards right now, a little bit extra gameplay content. So they lay it all out individually, and again, you get the explanation that I said right here. You're playing your action cards, moving across this grid, interacting with doors, items, vehicles, combined items into stronger objects, all action economy based system. Heavy interaction though, because what you're gonna be doing is looking up these IDs in combination with other ones. It reminds me a little bit of that sense of like Role Player Adventures, which did something very similar in that sense. So kind of runs you through the campaign structure, the diaries that you're going to be doing. They make it very clear though here at the bottom, it's not a legacy game. You're not altering things. You can take notes in the diary though, and well, you can restart it and make different choices based on what you see and what you want to do going further and farther forward. So a couple preview videos there as well, and you can try it out online. So there you go, Eternaut. Like I previously just mentioned, Bebop, Shuffle and Swing, Cat Blues, the big gig. 44,000 Bitewing games. I talked about Bebop and Cat Blues on my previous video from last week. 3 games, 3 different prices, 3 different sets of things to be looking at. Bebop, $59 here. It is your Knizia-like tile laying game with hexes that you're going to be claiming as open seats with hexagonal rings that will fit dice in them based on the 3 sides that are available to you as you slowly surround stages in order to score families grouped by symbol as well as color. A little bit of Babylonia-esque if you're a little bit familiar with that style of game. Then you have Cat Blues, a remake of an actual Knizia from 1998, where it takes a little bit of, if you're familiar with the more recent Scout, approach from a outbidding style of things where you are playing your cards to then take the cards in the center that you're bidding for, and then use those cards to create sets of 4 to score points, playing over 4 rounds, getting your quartets of getting different sets of the numbers in the first place to give you additional ways of scoring. And then Shuffle and Swing, well, Rondo Euro game. I have no idea on that one. I didn't cover that one. They said, which ones are you interested in? I said, I'm interested in these 2. Send this one to somebody else who's better suited to cover it right now. And they were very nice about that. And so 3 bundle pledge, you get a little bit of extra content. The festival is expansion with Bebop and the deluxifications. And interlocking coins deluxification there. I'm not sure. This looks a little bit like the double-sided board that I had. So I'm not sure if this was actually included in my copy or as the original like base game, or if this is additional included in that on top of things as a whole. I'm sure it'll break it down here. And yeah, oh look, that's me. And yeah, I mean, it's not the most explicit quote, but I really enjoyed it, and so I'll put that out on this side of things too. It's a lot of dice. It's a lot of surrounding, earning points and majorities, and watch their video. Their how to play videos are actually super well done. Yeah, it's a new twist on a tile laying thing, and it's going to be a little random though for you with the dice rolling, because you're going to have 3 available to you, and there's going to be also 3 that are going to be in a market that you can use to choose which one of the ones you want to put in your seat, but you can only have 3 open seats, so everybody ends the game basically in the same round, no matter which set of action you take, because it's just a 2 action system. Then you have here Shuffle and Swing. It's Euro-based. Team effort. You can make use of anyone else's supervisors, but they can only recruit for their own boss. So how are you going to manipulate other people's in order to, well, basically manipulate your own in the best way possible? You move your mouse to any space, you get to activate the action, activate your own die or somebody else's die there as well. And then whoever owns it though in the first place gets additional bonuses, and you're slowly building up your pieces of an instrument as you're going along on your own board before refreshing your own workers as a whole. Again, rulebook there, cutthroat, they say, Euro dynamic game. And then, well, you want a little twist? They give you a little add-on here with an instrument expansion and deluxified tokens. And I already talked you through Cat Blues, trick-taking, quartet gathering, coin-based point system that you're seeing. Oh, look, there's me again. So, I mean, the other benefit I'd say with the second one is that as a trick-taking game, I didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome, because sometimes, again, I feel like trick-taking games, when you have like hands of like 13 cards and you have to play 8 rounds, right? And yeah, it can get a little long. I love Nikosu Dice, great game, but hard to play because of the time length. And again, hopefully you'll get it by the end of the year. So as I always say with the triple game situations, go for the one that's right for you. Don't go for all of them just because they're super pretty. Only get the one that you want, even if you can save more money by backing more. Then we're going back to Solace. This is Lunar Oak Studios, and I was expecting heavy miniature based, and they went card based as a whole. So get your sleeves if you're backing now. And it's a card based cooperative tower climbing scenario based, well, sort of mission situation. And you're going to be playing cards to an action slot in order to manipulate as well as defeat enemies as you slowly climb the different floors of this tower, all while trying to avoid triggering the alarms that are going to be available to you. You're going to be getting a new expansion as well to go along with it. Special missions giving you 5 new players, new mechanics, new enemies, and new missions as you're going along. Playmat there. And as I said, you're dividing tasks trying to save hostages and reaching the goal of the top floor. And so you're either going to be fighting or evading enemies, saving these hostages and discovering the rooms as you go along. And the enemies are going to go after you take your individual turns of your actions, where you slot your cards to the left or right of your player characters in the first place. The alarm sounds, you gain reinforcements for the enemy side of things, and you again have to choose how you're going to proceed, because it's a mission-based branching scenario system that is going to unlock new cards and new mechanics as you go along. So this is not at all what I was expecting. You're going to have a chance to upgrade your team, make characters stronger, powers and mutations as you go along. It's only about a 12-page rulebook, and you should probably just go try it on Tabletop Simulator. So price is about right for a card-based game as a whole, although the all-in is a little bit more expensive as a whole. The Kickstarter exclusive expansion is going to cost you somewhere in the range of $40 to $50, and the little add-ons down here that you can see. And that's about it. Better than I was expecting. And so we'll kind of see where things go with here. But I'd watch a little bit of gameplay content to see if this one appeals to you, because a card-driven cooperative style was not what I was expecting, and I'm pleasantly surprised. One of my kids randomly set the alarm on his watch, one of these cheap digital watches, for 7:30 a.m., but it's going off at about 10:30 at night. Crazy. Anyway, so that's what time I'm filming this at, right? So next up, Dragonbonds, Lords of Vaala, new expansion content with a narrative version for this action programming area control game. Dragon Hero or Dragon Bonded Team. I covered this the first time around, and it's back now, 27 of 50,000 from Draco Studios. Narrative expansion content, playable scenarios. So basically, I'm assuming they're going to give you scenarios to set up with, as opposed to just going head to head. And, you know, like as I covered with Draco in the past, they've got a really high production value as well. So you're probably going to pay for it a little bit, I'm going to guess. Oh, new expansion, $38. Base game and epics, $69. And all of it is going to be, 3 expansions, $99. And 104 full gameplay, $175. So, I mean, that's a lot for this. And so this is the way you can get into Lords of Vaala or not. Because, again, it's a lot of programming area control, which we don't always see a ton of as a mechanical combination here. So the newest expansion here is offering 4 new playable characters, new scenario mechanics, threats and goals are going to be available, and new magic to go along with it. Because, you know, how your arrangement on the board of your heroes and your dragons, or how you choose to manipulate, changes the dynamics of the game as a whole. So then they say, okay, the scenario mechanics here, you're introducing new threats of new dragons, as well as new strongholds, new player boards, and new playing style as a whole. So again, how does it compare? What does it compare to? I mean, it's definitely different in terms of those combinations of mechanics. They run you through some of the other previous expansion content here, more characters, more generals, 2 modules that are offering neutral heroes. I don't know anything about the expansion content. I just played the base game as a prototype a couple of years ago when it came out. One of the earlier ones I covered on crowdfunding as, sort of prototype impressions. And yeah, it's more war skirmish action programming area control. So you can get the dragon, you can get the hero. Usually like in a 4-player game, 2 people will be dragons, 2 people will be heroes, and you can sort of forge these semi-alliances depending on which side you're on. So power up your characters, get your asymmetric abilities, program, rinse, repeat, go. I don't hear a ton about it anymore, but it's been relatively well regarded. It's just kind of one of those sleepers. Dracos aren't widely available at retail, and you just don't see them talked about because it's a select amount overall. So new content, new expansion stuff. Again, expansions are tricky nowadays in crowdfunding. Which one's right for you? And if you love it, give it a look-see. Simulator soccer. Freedom of hand-controlled soccer with a hex-based grid movement. You flick down on this little ball to manipulate it, but you can even defend actively as the goalkeeper right there, as you can see. And what you're going to be doing is like passing along the side here and trying to then use your tactics to gradually make your way across. That's the only thing I don't really get a good sense of. Like the actual dexterity mechanic seems cool, but if you look down at the GIF down here, when we get down to this one, right, you're just like passing it over there and you get to like move your character up. So I'm not really sure the dynamic from that side of things. And they talk about the customizable jerseys and teams, but basically giving them point allocations with different skills. And I'm just not sure about this. How do you actually, make these skills better? Or I'm assuming that determines how those actions can be taken in the first place. So, I mean, it seems like a cool concept, but as a person who really has a cool dexterity soccer-based game of just flicking in general, I don't know if I need another one. It's cool though. And you know what? How much have they actually raised at this point? Let's see. $4,000, 71 people. And the price point is, it's about what I'd expect. 50, 60 bucks. So Kickstarter limited edition is going to be 70. You have to love it though. You have to love dexterity, you have to love soccer, and you have to love the unique mechanics. And the combination, well, it's funded, so we'll see where it goes. Truck-kun, Isekai anime-based game. Basically, it kind of reminds me of Love Letter. You have these 8 cards in your hand, and they all have different asymmetric powers, and you play them all simultaneously to see who can win the tricks or the cards out there in the first place. And then the highest number wins, but they can manipulate and take out each other as you lay them. And like the villain is the highest card out there, and if that's the highest card out there, it would win it. But then some of the heroes actually go before the villain, and so there's a little bit of dynamic there. They don't give you a whole lot of insight into that, and as well as what these combinations can do. You can somehow play it cooperatively and check it out on Tabletop Simulator too. So I mean, here's an example of one of the cards, right? Discard 1 card from your hand. If you do, this character gains the effect of any other character card. So it's got a lot of like asymmetric Oriflamme style of things in addition. So that's it. That's the whole in a nutshell. Truck-kun, check it out. Then, over on GameFound, Gabe is back with his Game of the Month, solo Game of the Month. This one is Rome, Fate of an Empire, $25,000, solo killing it. And, well, leader, strategy, Fate of an Empire, engine, tableau building, resource management. So, designed, hint hint, wink wink, by Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs designer. So, midweight Euro game as a solo? Okay, there you go, right? I have no idea, though, aspect of this. What you're doing, though, is you're playing a card and then moving your leader pawn on this grid-based card management system, dropping them token-wise as you're going along and then spending them to activate those tokens after you move. You're buying more cards, developing your tableau and your attributes, and blending solo, exploration, and engine build as a whole. Surprisingly, the rulebook is actually a little bit longer than I expected. It's 24 pages, and they give you a little bit of overview. Complete all the requirements of your edicts, as well as your glory point commission. You lose if, well, you don't complete them by the end of the game, or collapse if you take too much loans or strife happens as a whole. You can choose and adapt to what the game length is going to be, as well as the difficulty, whether that's going to be 3 rounds or 4 rounds, anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half. The 3 phases of the games, your active projects, your actions, and your cleanups. So, well, active projects are going to be upkeep and paid for. Your action phases of all of these different things that you're going to be potentially able to do. And then the cleanup phase at the end of this, because again, most of this is the actions right here as you're seeing. And we get down to the conquering and destroying and cleaning up finally, and resolving any leader issues, spending any extra influence, discarding any cards played because you draw up to 5 cards at the beginning of your hand as part of your tableau, replenishing, redeveloping those markets and your hand, and then advancing. So rinse and repeat. I'm not going to go over all of the actions because, as I said, right, there's a fair number right here as we're going through playing your cards, buying cards, building development, leader actions, development actions, conquering, returning strife, paying off loans, and exchanging. So it's definitely a little bit heavier, without any doubt, just looking through the rulebook. And being that price, it's a little bit lighter in terms of card and token driven. So check it out. Solo Game of the Month. And again, killing it over on GameFound. Gabe's done it again, and we'll see where things go. Now, last up here over on GameFound, Astrum from Cosmodrome, the makers, publishers of games like Aquatica. So this is an abstract from the same designer, 30 to 45 minutes, 2 to 4 players, as you cover up stars on your individual board to form constellations, pattern matching, set collection, individual objectives. So what you got going on here is you are gradually going to be producing a chart essentially in the center of the board that is divided up into these colored quadrants. And you're going to have an astrolab that is going to allow it to move which section of the board you're potentially drawing from and placing into. And so you're going to be gradually creating these constellations as you go along, either grabbing one of these tiles on a turn-by-turn basis, or basically, you know, if you can't grab one of the big ones and fit it in, you could grab one of those small ones. There's going to be King's Favor, which are going to be specific objectives that you have to do in certain rounds, and then you're going to play until one of these sections that you're pulling from in the first place empties out, and you play a number of rounds, 3, 4, along that line, depending on the player count as a whole. 24-page rulebook here, and about $40 for a little bit of a deluxeified version of the constellation boards with the cluster tiles and the tiles here that you can see that are going to be used. And that's GameFound exclusive components. That's everything. $20 to ship, though. I mean, that's 50% of the price to ship. That's expensive, but it is what it is. I mean, Cosmodrome, not a big company in the first place. So again, give it a look-see. There's only one pledge level as a whole. Question is this a light style abstract for you or not? But check it out, Astrum. So that's it. That's the roundup. That's all I got. That's all I got. It's enough, though, for this week, because next week's going to be a little bit bigger. Next 2 weeks, actually, are going to be much bigger. Even the next 3, perhaps. And May's kind of... I haven't really looked into May too much, you know? Like I said at the beginning of the video, right? DC United, totally screwed that one up. Awkward Guest 2, totally screwed that one up. Fall on my sword, right? Just, sorry. I'm sorry. Not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give you as accurate as information as I can. Some days, right? Some days you're on and some days you're not. Well, what it is. Oh well, happens. Either way, play something fun. Have a great freaking weekend. I'm going to be doing some of that myself. I'm going to put on a multi-game review here shortly of a couple games that are either currently ending on crowdfunding in the late pledge manager very soon that you may have seen crowdfunding as well, including Raid of Hades, which is currently ending. I was going to try and get that one out beforehand. It just didn't happen. Steam Power from Wallace Designs, as well as Requiem Downfall of Magic, which is all going to be sort of, I think, 3-in-1 there. And then a couple coming out, I'll talk about a little bit more depth tomorrow of the upcoming crowdfunding, the Table Golf Association, the One Hit Heroes, and a few others. Thanks for watching. Sub if you want. Hit that thumb button. Peace out. Have a great freaking fantastic day. Stay classy. See you around. It never ceases to fail.